So today we are here with Mike Sciarra, the first pastor to have his church go through the missions course in person, all 6 lessons live here in Orange County at Grace Church of Orange. It's good to be with you, Mike.
You too, Luke. Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah.
So could you just quickly give us a brief introduction of yourself and your head pastorship here at GCO?
Sure. So I've been at Grace Church since 2006. We're a multi-generational Bible teaching church. Uh, Believe in the sovereignty of God and and getting missions to the ends of the earth. So getting the gospel everywhere. And so we're excited to be a part of this in the missions course. And yeah, thanks for having me.
So Mike, your church, GCO, was the first to finish the missions course in person. I'd love to hear what kind of impact are you guys seeing now finishing the missions course here at GCO? What's the impact been?
Yeah, the impact's been wonderful. Our impacts have been from immediate in terms of even after session one, we made changes. We noticed there were some things that we were missing on our website as it relates to missions. We basically had a lot of short-term missions. We talked about all of our long-term missionaries, but there was no pathway to be able to go and express even interest in being a long-term missionary. So lots of opportunities for here, sign up for short-term trips. And we realized, wow, this was missing. Besides that, and there were some things that we did in terms of pathway to long-term missions engagement immediately. Short-term missions opportunities ramped up in a big way, and then local outreach opportunities being listed. But probably the biggest impact was several of our students, young students, were saying, I want to do this. I want to go. And we have, I think, 3 or 4 that are considering this and taking steps in the right direction.
I also heard that you guys saw some pretty solid attendance for the missions course. I don't know the total congregation of the church, but I remember attending in person and the room was full. It was alive. There was energy. What kind of folks did you see attending the course?
All ages, and this is really representative of when we put something on, whether it's a Bible Institute or Sunday morning worship or the missions course. We had elementary students up to people in their 80s, and all excited about missions, not just there because their parents dragged them there. And we did have something for younger kids. There were some kids saying, "I want to go to the missions course," so they were in there. A lot of high school and college students and a lot of people in, again, all the age ranges that really, some were probably ignited in their passion for missions, but many, it was just cultivating the ground for what they were already, thinking about.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So Mike, at AIRO, we love every lesson of TMC. We're obviously a bit biased, but I'd love to hear which lessons you would say had the greatest impact here at GCO while you guys were going through the missions course.
Excellent. Okay, so I loved all 6 lessons as well, and I think they built really well on one another. I think this course is just shaped and framed really, really well. Lesson 5 and lesson 6. So I'm going to give you 2. Okay, lesson 5 on church planting was the idea of staying is necessary was particularly impactful to a lot of our college students, and we've seen an uptick in our college students in terms of long-term missions interest in this past year. So that was wonderful. My personal favorite was lesson 6, your role and what it looks like to be a global Christian and what next steps you can take. And that was Luke Womack. And, his outline was stellar and it was just on point, and it really brought together everything in the missions course and really called for the question. And it's, who is missions for? Every believer, every stage, every age. And who am I called to be? A global Christian. That you make God's purpose the priority and passion of your life. And you want to preach the gospel to those who do not know Christ. And then what can I do? And I love this line. I've used it a lot since then. Go or send, but do not disobey. I love that. Go or send, but do not disobey.
So now, as you look back on GCO's time going through the missions course, would you say that there were some seeds planted in the hearts and minds of participants that you guys will see fruit from in the coming months and years?
Absolutely. When you plant a seed in your backyard and you see it, like when you first see it, coming through the soil, and you're like, wow, it's actually growing. And then maybe 2 weeks goes by and you're like, whoa, it's 5 or 6 inches tall. And then 6 months goes by and you're like, I got a tree, or it's going to be a tree, and then you see fruit at some point. I think we saw some immediate fruit, which I've mentioned already, but people that were excited and saying, we want to do more missions, okay? And it's impacted not only our short term, but our long term people that are thinking long term, okay? But also our local outreach. Like more people dove into what we're doing in the community of Orange, you know, in the El Medina area, particularly. But we've been a missions church for a long time, and we have a lot of missionaries. We've sent people out long and short term. But I think this was a very clear and concise way to call the church to a very intent action more deeply with the same vision, and undergirding that with the missions course content was so on point. There's not a lot of fluff. And I like to get to the point, and they got to the point.
So since GCO finished the missions course, I've heard some wonderful stories just down the road here. But I would love to hear, do you have any standout stories of impact that you'd like to share? Any individuals who've seen some really incredible change?
That's a great question. So there are several of our college students that have literally dove in head first, feet first, however you want to put it. One in next month, they will be probably committing long term to a missions agency. We've got others that are exploring and asking the questions like, what questions do I need to ask to a prospective missions agency? Where before a lot of times people would come to us and say, we're going to do this. What do you think? We want your blessing. Now we're kind of ground floor working with some young folks in a way that we really haven't in the past. We've sent out missionaries, but it has been mostly their idea coming to us and asking us about it, and the elders, getting behind them on that. This is more cultivating the ground and kind of growing our own. Just like we've grown our own pastors and sent them out to pastor other churches, we're growing our own missionaries to go to the ends of the earth.
So, Mike, you mentioned earlier that during the missions course, there were folks from all sorts of walks of life coming together to hear about missions. Would you say that GCO has seen an increased sense of community and kind of engagement together since finishing the course?
Absolutely. I think the shared experience that we all had, we had dinner beforehand, fellowship around tables, and we came in, and then the missions course was really good about getting people interacting every session. That was one of the greatest, um, you know, net positives in terms of I knew there would be great content, but I loved the fact that they got people engaging right then and talking about these things. And so that's just carried on. Has carried on, and again, multi-generationally. But the buzz that has continued since we did the course, which is now 5-6 months ago, hasn't been waning. Let's put it that way. I'd say it's been growing, and you see it out on the plaza in between services on a Sunday morning. People are kind of hovering around the missions table and just asking questions and talking and making plans, basically. Yeah.
So, Mike, as head pastor of GCO, I'd love to hear what your advice or recommendations would be for someone that's on the fence about the missions course. What would you want them to know about how it could look at their church?
Okay, so here we go. If you're on the fence about the missions course and you're like, why would I want to do this particular course, but also spend this amount of money and this amount of time and effort to put something on? Let me ask you one question. What are you doing now, and how's that working for you? Like, is what you're doing now getting more people to go to the ends of the earth with the gospel? How is what you're currently doing working for you? And I would venture to guess that a lot of pastors and church leaders would say, we see some room for improvement. Like, how focused is your entire church body on taking the gospel to the ends of the earth and doing that in a very pointed and committed and Christ-centered way long term? And then when you answer that question, I would say you see need for improvement, or you see that you could have your entire church body, more wrapped up in Christ's command, and you need to focus your efforts more precisely. Then do the missions course, because the missions course is going to give you 6 weeks. I know this is cliche, but no greater bang for the buck, in my opinion. Kingdom impact through focused investment and involvement of your time with your people around these 6 sessions. And not just the 6 sessions, but the 6 weeks of life that you live in between all of that, the marrow in between all of that, where people are talking and people are interacting and just considering and praying and saying, okay, what does this mean for my life? What does this mean for our church? What does this mean for the desires I have to take the gospel out to the ends of the earth?
So, Mike, would you say that the financial and time investment in the missions course was worth it based on the results you've seen here at Grace Church of Orange?
Absolutely. The missions course is so clear and concise. I would say no time or no dime is wasted when you are so focused and so precise about missions impact in a clear and concise way. So plenty of people could spin their wheels on doing something like this and maybe not get to the point. The missions course gets you to the point and calls for the question and then pushes you towards action. And what better thing to do? We have Christ's call to go make disciples of all nations and go to the ends of the earth. And we have his assurance he's with us always. Why not dive in and take that financial time commitment because it's worth it. It's worth it because souls and lives are at stake. This is an eternal investment.
So, Mike, if you could just give an overall rating, an overall opinion of the missions course, what would you say?
10 out of 10, 5 stars out of 5 stars, A plus rating, however you want to put it. I'm a big fan of the missions course. When I first saw the course, before we ever did it, and I just saw the outlines of the course, I thought, we're doing this. We are doing this. And I've been aware of other courses. I've been aware of other materials that you can use. As soon as I saw the way it was outlined, when I saw it was 6 weeks, when I saw the kind of things they were going to be focused on, I'm like, Grace Church of Orange is doing this. And it was kind of a foregone conclusion. And so when I went to our elders and said, look, it's going to cost us this much, it's going to take us this long, we're going to need to do this kind of a push, I was already saying, we're doing this. It wasn't, hey, you guys think it's okay if we do this? And I'm telling you, I'm a big fan. I think it gets to the point, it's laser focused, it is biblically solid, it is, get the gospel to the ends of the earth. And do it in a passionate way, do it in a way that that fits where you're at, and just trust the Lord and go. And I think the missions course is more engaging than anything I've ever seen when it comes to a missions type teaching. It gets you involved with the content, goes right into the Word. What does the Word say about it? What does God intend? What's God's plan for this? And then it gets the participants engaged with one another all the way through the 6 weeks. And so you're not just sitting in a room all by yourself. I mean, you can do it that way, but being with a group, being with a cohort, being with a large group that's going through this, or a small group, however your church wants to do it, it makes a difference because now you have the shared experience and it's like, let's go do something. If I had to look out and go, I wonder what's going to happen in 10 years, 5 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road as Grace Church sending people out, I would imagine that there could be some that say, hey, we were both at the missions course, or 3 of us were at the missions course. We want to now go, and we want you to send us out as a team on this foreign field. And we would rejoice. We rejoice and do it wholeheartedly.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Here at AIRO, we just praise God that it's been so profitable for the church, and we just cannot wait to hear more from you and from all the participants who went through it. So, hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Luke. It's been a pleasure.